When my daughter-in-law told me, "You don't have to wait for our calls anymore," I smiled. I smiled because I did not want her to see my face break. But that night, I sat beside the small wooden table near my bed. The phone was right there. Quiet. Still. Like it had forgotten how to ring. I kept looking at it. Every few minutes. Just in case. You see, I used to be the one they called. For everything. When the baby had a fever. When dinner burned. When the washing machine stopped working. When they argued and did not know how to say sorry. But now I waited. I waited by the phone, wondering if they remembered me anymore. The house felt larger than before. Not because it changed, but because the laughter had left. The sound of little feet running down the hallway was gone. Even the kitchen felt different. Too clean. Too quiet. Sometimes I would hold the phone in my hand. Not to call them. Just to feel close to something that once connected us. I told myself they were busy. Young people are always busy. But how busy can someone be to forget their own mother? I was not always alone. There was a time when this house was full. My son, Arjun, was born on a rainy afternoon. I still remember the smell of wet earth outside the hospital window. He was small, quiet, and serious even as a baby. His father passed away when Arjun was only 6 years old. After that, it was just the two of us. I worked in a small school kitchen. I woke up at 5 every morning, cooked rice and lentils before sunrise, packed his lunch, pressed his uniform with my old iron that heated slowly and unevenly. Life was not easy, but it was full of purpose. Every evening, Arjun would sit at the dining table and tell me about his day. "Ma, I got full marks in math. Ma, my teacher said I read very well. Ma, when I grow up, I will buy you a big house." I would laugh. "I don't need a big house," I told him. "I just need you to eat properly." And he did. He studied hard. He never complained. Even when money was tight, he never asked for toys like other boys did. When he finished college and got his first job in the city, I felt proud. But I also felt something else. A small fear. Because I knew children must grow. And when they grow, they move away. Still, he called me every night. Every single night. "Ma, did you eat?" "Yes." "Are you taking your medicine?" "Yes." "Don't forget." "I won't." Those calls were short. 5 minutes. Maybe 10. But they filled my entire day. Then he met her. Her name was Kavya. She was polite, soft-spoken, educated. She worked in an office with glass walls and air conditioning. She dressed neatly, spoke gently, smiled often. When he brought her home for the first time, I noticed how carefully she looked around the house. Not judging, just observing. I cooked everything I knew how to cook that day. 3 vegetables, sweet rice, fried bread. Even though my knees hurt, I stood for hours. After dinner, she said, "Auntie, you didn't have to do so much." I smiled. But inside, I thought, of course I did. "You're taking my son." A year later, they got married. The wedding was simple, but beautiful. I wore a pale green sari. Arjun looked happy. Truly happy. And that was enough for me. After the wedding, they moved into a small apartment closer to their offices. Arjun asked, "Ma, will you come stay with us?" I hesitated. I did not want to be a burden, but he insisted. "You took care of me all my life. Now it's my turn." So I packed my clothes, my old photo albums, my husband's framed picture, and I went with them. At first, everything felt new and exciting. The apartment was modern. The kitchen had bright lights. There was a lift. I had never lived in a building with a lift before. Kavya showed me how to use the microwave. "Just press this button," she said gently. I nodded, even though I preferred the stove. When their baby girl, Mira, was born, my heart felt full again. I held her tiny fingers and whispered, "Your grandmother is here." For a while, I felt needed, important, useful. But slowly things began to change. It started with small things. Very small. One afternoon, I was feeding Mira mashed banana. Kavya walked in and said softly, Ani, the doctor said no banana yet. I stopped immediately.
I'm sorry.
I forgot. She smiled politely. It's okay. Just follow the chart I made. A chart. On the refrigerator. With timings. Portions. Instructions. I felt replaced. Not as a grandmother, but as experience itself. Another time, I folded the laundry the way I always had. Kavya unfolded it quietly and refolded it differently. No words. Just silence. Silence can hurt more than anger. Arjun became busier at work. He came home tired. He ate quickly. He checked his phone often. Ma, everything okay? He would ask. Yes, I always said. Because what could I say? That I felt like a guest in the house I cleaned every day. That I waited for someone to tell me where I belonged. Sometimes, in the evenings, I would sit by the window and watch other families in nearby buildings. Lights turning on. Shadows moving inside rooms. I wondered if other mothers felt this way too. One night at dinner, Kavya said gently, "We're thinking of hiring a babysitter when I go back to work." I looked up. "I'm here," I said quietly. She hesitated. "Yes, but you should rest. You've done enough in your life." Done enough. The words stayed with me. Done enough. Is that what happens to mothers? Do we reach a point where we are simply done? After that, they started making decisions without asking me. Weekend plans. Furniture changes. Even Mira's school choices. I was there, but not included. And slowly the calls stopped too. Not fully. Just shorter. Then shorter still, until one day, when I returned to my old house for a short visit, the phone became my only companion again. Arjun said, "Ma, we'll call every evening." I nodded. The first week they did. The second week, every other day. By the third week, silence. I would sit at the edge of my bed at 7 in the evening. That used to be our time.
7.
I kept the phone beside me. I did not switch on the television. I did not cook until later. I just waited. Sometimes I picked up the phone and checked if the line was working.
It was.
Just not ringing. One evening, I gathered courage and called Arjun. It rang 5 times. Then voicemail. I hung up before it answered. I did not want to seem needy. The next morning, he sent a short message.
Sorry, ma.
Busy yesterday.
Busy.
Such a small word. Such a big distance. The days began to look the same. Morning tea. A quiet breakfast. A little sweeping. A little cooking. Then long hours of nothing. I used to be busy all my life. Busy hands make a peaceful heart. But now, my hands rested too much. Sometimes I walked to the market just to hear people talk. Vendors arguing gently over prices. Children asking for sweets. Women discussing recipes. I would buy vegetables I did not really need, just to feel useful. Every evening, at 7, I still sat beside the phone. At first, I told myself they will call. Then I told myself, maybe they are on the way home. Then I told myself, maybe Mira is sick. Then I told myself nothing. I just waited. One evening, the phone finally rang. My heart jumped. I almost dropped it while picking it up. "Hello," I said, trying to sound calm. "Ma." Arjun's voice came through, distracted. "We're going on a short trip this weekend. Just letting you know." "Oh," I said softly. "That's nice."
Yes.
Kavya got leave. Mira is excited. There was noise in the background. Traffic. Maybe. "Ma, I'll call you later, okay? I'm driving." The call ended in less than a minute. I held the phone for a long time after that. I was happy they were going out together. I truly was. But I noticed something. He called to inform me. Not to talk to me. There is a difference. Days later, I found an old photo album while cleaning my cupboard. There was a picture of Arjun at age 10, holding a handmade birthday card. It said, "To the best ma in the world." I traced the letters with my finger. When did the world become so large that I no longer fit inside it? I decided to stop waiting at 7. It felt foolish. Instead, I told myself if they call, they call. But even when I said that, I still kept the phone close. One afternoon, Kavya called. That surprised me. Auntie, how are you? She asked politely.
I'm fine, beta.
How are you? We're good. Actually, I wanted to talk. There was a pause. I felt something heavy inside my chest. Yes, I asked gently. I hope you don't misunderstand, she began. But sometimes Arjun feels guilty. He says you wait for his calls. It makes him stressed.
Stressed.
I stayed quiet. She continued softly. He has a lot of work pressure. Meetings. Deadlines. When he misses your call, he feels bad. I don't call much, I said quietly. Yes, but even the waiting, he feels it. I did not know what to say. How do you stop waiting for your child? She spoke again, still calm. Maybe it's better if you don't expect regular calls. That way no one feels pressure. No one feels pressure. I swallowed. Of course, I said. You are right. She sounded relieved. Thank you, Auntie. You understand. After the call ended, the house felt even quieter than before. So this was my mistake. Not calling. Not complaining. Just waiting. That night, I moved the phone from the bedside table to the kitchen counter. I told myself it was just for charging. But maybe I was trying to create distance. If I did not see it, maybe I would not expect it to ring. That a week later, Arjun called. His voice was tired. Ma, Kavya spoke to you, right? Yes, I said calmly. Don't feel bad. It's just life is very busy. I can't always manage calls. I understand, I said. He hesitated. Then he said the words that stayed with me. Ma, you don't have to wait for our calls anymore. There was no anger in his voice.
No cruelty.
Just practicality, as if he were advising me not to wait for a bus that no longer runs. I smiled, even though he could not see me. I won't wait, I said. Good, he replied, relieved. Take care, okay? After we hung up, I sat very still. The fan above me made a soft humming sound. Outside, a dog barked somewhere far away. I looked around the house. Every corner had a memory. The scratch on the wall from when Arjun rode his bicycle indoors. The small stain on the kitchen shelf from spilled milk years ago. This house had heard my laughter, my prayers, my worries. And now it heard my silence. I walked slowly to the kitchen. I picked up the phone, and I placed it inside the drawer. Not angrily, just gently, like putting away something that no longer belonged in the open. That night, I did not sit at 7. I cooked dinner at 6. I ate alone at 6:30. By 7, I washed the dishes. At 7:30, I folded clothes. At 8, I lay down. The phone did not ring. And for the first time, I did not look at it. But something inside me felt empty. Not angry, just empty. A few days later, I felt feverish. Nothing serious, just weakness. I thought about calling Arjun. Then I remembered his words. You don't have to wait. And somehow, those words also meant,
don't disturb.
So I drank warm water, took my medicine, and rested. That evening, as I lay in bed, I heard laughter from a neighboring house. A grandmother playing with her grandchildren. I could hear a child saying, Dottie, again, again. My eyes filled with tears. I missed Mira's small voice. The way she used to say, Nani story. I wondered if she still remembered my stories. Or if new stories had replaced them. I realized something then. Children grow. They build their own worlds. And sometimes, parents stand outside those worlds, knocking softly. Not because they are unwanted,
but because the door has changed.
I had spent my life being strong. But that night I allowed myself to cry. Not loudly, just quietly. Into my pillow.
For
the first time, I admitted the truth to myself. I was lonely. Not because they hated me. Not because they forgot me completely. But because life had moved forward. And I was standing still. The next morning I opened the drawer. I looked at the phone. It looked the same. But I did not feel the same. I made tea, sat by the window, and asked myself a simple question. If I am not waiting, then what am I doing? I realized I had been measuring my days by their calls. If they called, it was a good day. If they didn't, it was a bad day. That was unfair.
To them.
and to me. So I decided something small. I would build a routine that did not depend on a ringtone. I visited the temple nearby, not to complain to God,
just to sit among people.
I joined a small group of women who gathered every Thursday to read and talk. At first, I listened more than I spoke. Then slowly I shared. One woman said, "My son lives abroad. He calls once a month." Another said, "Mine only messages." We smiled at each other. There was comfort in shared silence. One afternoon, I received a call. I was not near the phone. I was in the courtyard, watering plants. When I came inside, I saw 2 missed calls. From Arjun. For a moment, my heart raced. Old habits returned quickly. But instead of panic, I felt calm. I called back.
Ma, you didn't pick up, he said.
I was outside. I replied gently.
Oh.
Okay, just checking on you. Just checking. It sounded different now. He spoke for 5 minutes. Then 10. He asked about the temple.
About the women I met.
He sounded curious. Maybe he sensed the change. Maybe he felt less pressure. Or maybe I finally sounded less dependent. When the call ended, I did not sit staring at the phone. I returned to my plants. The sun was warm. The leaves looked brighter. Life was still here. Around me. Not only inside a phone call. The days did not feel as heavy anymore. Not because my son called more often, but because I stopped counting. That small change made a quiet difference inside me. I began waking up with a purpose again. In the mornings, I watered the plants and spoke to them softly. In the afternoons, I read small storybooks, so I would remember them when Mira visited. In the evenings, I walked slowly around the neighborhood. I noticed things I had ignored before. A small boy learning to ride a bicycle. An old man feeding birds near the park gate. A young couple arguing gently and then laughing. Life was still moving, and I was still part of it. One Sunday afternoon, while I was cutting vegetables, the doorbell rang. I wiped my hands on my sari and walked slowly to the door. When I opened it, I saw them. Arjun,
Kavya,
and little Mira holding a small pink bag. For a second, I thought I was dreaming. "Ma," Arjun said, smiling softly.
Surprise.
I stepped aside to let them in. My heart was beating fast, but my voice stayed steady. "You should have told me," I said. "We wanted to surprise you," Kavya replied gently. Mira ran to me. "Nani," she shouted. She hugged my legs tightly. I closed my eyes for a moment. That small hug filled something inside me that had been empty for months. The house felt alive again. Mira's voice echoed through the rooms. Arjun sat on the old sofa, looking around as if remembering something. "Nothing has changed," he said. "Some things shouldn't," I replied. Kavya walked into the kitchen. "Auntie, let me help," she offered. For the first time, I did not insist on doing everything alone. We cooked together. Quietly. Comfortably. At lunch, Mira asked, "Nani, why don't you come stay with us again?" I looked at Arjun. He looked back at me. There was hesitation in his eyes. Not rejection. Just uncertainty. Before he could speak, I smiled. "I like my house," I said softly. "But I will visit." Mira nodded as if that was enough. After lunch, Arjun and I sat near the window. For a while, neither of us spoke. Then he said quietly, "Ma, I'm sorry if I made you feel alone." I looked at him. He was no longer the small boy who needed me to tie his shoelaces. He was a grown man. Tired. Trying his best. "I was lonely," I admitted gently. "But not because you forgot me." He looked confused. "Then why?" "Because I forgot myself," I said. He stayed silent. So I explained. "I waited for your calls like they were the only proof that I mattered. That was my mistake. You have your life. That is how it should be." He looked down at his hands. "I never meant to hurt you." "I know," I said.
And I truly did.
Sometimes children do not realize that silence can feel heavy. Not because they do not love us, but because they're learning how to balance too many things at once. Kavya joined us later. She spoke softly. "Auntie, I hope you didn't misunderstand me that day." I shook my head. You were protecting your husband from pressure. That is your role. She looked relieved. But I also want Mira to know you well, she added. And she will, I said. Without pressure. Without waiting by the phone, they stayed for 2 days. It was not a long visit, but it was enough. On the second evening, we all sat together after dinner. No television. Just quiet conversation. Mira climbed into my lap and said, Nani, tell the mango story. I laughed softly. You still remember that? Yes, she said proudly. So I told the story.
Slowly. Calmly.
And while I spoke, I noticed something. Arjun was listening too. Not as a busy man, but as my son. When they finally prepared to leave, the house grew quiet again. But this time, the quiet did not feel sharp. It felt gentle. At the door, Arjun hugged me. Call me whenever you want, he said. I smiled. I will, I replied. But inside, I knew something had changed. I would call when I wished to talk. Not because I was waiting. And if he did not answer, I would not measure my worth by that. Because love is not a daily attendance sheet. It is something deeper. Something steady. Even when the phone does not ring. That evening, at 7, I was not sitting beside the phone. I was in the courtyard, watering my plants. The sky was turning orange. Birds were returning to their nests. My phone was inside, resting on the table. And for the first time in many months, I did not think about it. I thought about the sound of Mira's laughter. About the way Kavya had quietly washed the dishes without being asked. About Arjun sitting near the window, looking like the little boy he once was. They had not forgotten me. They were just living. And I had to live too. Waiting had slowly turned into a habit. And habits can make us small. But life is larger than one ringtone. Larger than one missed call. Larger than one misunderstanding. I learned something important. Children grow into their own worlds. Parents must learn to grow too. Not away from love, but toward their own strength. If you are listening to my story tonight, and if you are also waiting by a phone, I want to tell you something softly. Do not stop loving. Do not stop caring. But do not stop living either. Your worth is not measured by how often someone calls you. Your heart is not only a receiver. It is a source. Love your children. Bless them. But build a life that does not depend on their schedule. Sit in the sun. Water your plants. Talk to neighbors. Learn something new. Because when we fill our own days with meaning, we no longer wait in sadness. We wait in peace. And sometimes, when we stop waiting with pain, the phone rings naturally. Not out of duty, but out of love. That night before sleeping, I placed the phone back beside my bed. Not as something I needed, but as something that might ring. And if it did, I would smile. Not because I had been waiting, but because I was all ready.